Hi, welcome back to the Launch Point Leader Podcast. My name's Lori.
This is Beau.
And we are so excited to be back here another week to share with you a letter that a listener has written into us. You can always write us in as well. Just visit our website at launchpointleader.com. Our letter today says, Dear LaunchPoint, I look up to leaders like you.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you.
Favorite writer, 100%. Thank you, whoever you are.
When we give out letter awards at the end of the year, you're going to get, maybe
what
you'll
a great
get one.
idea. A banquet, but a podcast banquet for letters of the year. Yeah.
We can make that happen. A virtual thing. We'll
Yeah.
workshop it. You'll
down,
hear
though?
from us.
Did you write it down?
Sorry, banquet.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's good.
Going in the notes.
Perfect.
Underlined.
Fantastic. So, they look up to you.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Continue.
The kind of leaders who make people believe in something bigger than themselves. The kind who can speak clearly, decide boldly, and carry the weight that leadership demands. But I also know that's not the whole story. What I really want to hear is this. Can you tell me a moment when you doubted yourself as a leader? Not the polished version, but the real moment where you questioned if you were cut out for it or you considered walking away. I want to know what it felt like, what you learned, and what pulled you through, because right now I'm in that place, and I need to hear how someone I admire found a way forward, even when they weren't sure they could. Signed, Doubting and Desperate.
They say they want the not polished version, the real moment. What is our podcast rated? Like, is there a PG-13? Is it like, I don't want to change the rating when they say not polished. No, I don't
think that'll affect anything. I'm not sure how many
bleeps. Can we edit the bleeps?
Yeah, maybe. That could always be played with. We'll see.
He's smiling.
I don't know.
There.
Get real, and then we'll scale it from there. If you're listening to this, it went okay.
Yeah. Hey, listen. I think it's so true. We all get to this point. I think is big L leaders, because especially with big dreams. You want to go first?
Do you want me to?
Do you? I mean, I can. I don't. I don't want to.
You said I had a couple. You had a couple. So do you want to go first? I'll go, and then you can roll it back up.
The one that comes to mind, the most clear for me. I do have two. And so I'll start with the earlier one. If we get to the second one, great.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, we were married for a few years. I was working in a lower level or mid-management position. All of my friends were making, right out of college, they were making much more money than I was. They had much more prestigious roles than I had. And I was grinding every day. I might be going in at 3 a.m. or might be staying until 2 a.m. or whatever it might be. And, I'm married. My wife is a teacher. We're living in the community that we grew up in. And so I would see people walk into my establishment where I'm working and go, why are you doing this? But I remember there was one night when I had tried to get a franchise, and it just wasn't going as quickly as I wanted it to. And we were hosting a church small group at our house that night at 6:00. And I'd gone in that morning at 4:30 to open up the restaurant and to work. And it had just, I couldn't leave. There was too much going on. I had to stay. And so my job was to pick up the pizza for the event that night. And so I called Kate, my wife, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be late. I'm going to pick up the pizza, whatever. So I actually walk in my garage door with the pizza as everyone is walking out of the front door, like they're done. I've missed the whole thing. So Kate got some food out of the refrigerator and served people like deli meats, whatever, that's fine. And I've got pizza. And I remember she was at the front door seeing everybody out, and I was in our living room, our den, and I put my back up against the wall. She came back and looked at me, and I just remember sliding down the wall, holding that box of pizza in my hand, going to the floor and looking at her and saying, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can do this anymore, because I've given so much. And in reality, I'd given 2 or 3 years. Not that much, but I'd given so much. I was working so much. I was missing so many things. I was just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And she, to her credit, sat down right beside me on the floor, and we had some pizza. Great. Which pizza makes everything better. So I think my piece of advice to doubting and despair is get a box of pizza, for goodness sake, and maybe some cake as well. That always is helpful. But we sat down there on the floor and just talked about why it was hard, why I felt the way I felt. And she just encouraged me to like keep going. Like I could do it. She was there with me. She was there for the long nights, the early mornings, the missed things. Like she was there for it. And it was one of the defining moments for me because I really was. I was ready to quit. And that pizza box moment for me is something I look back on and go, the only reason I didn't quit is because someone else believed in me, saw a different perspective than what I saw every single day, and didn't just commiserate with me. They looked at the big vision and went, I know it's really hard. Like it's hard for me. It's hard for you. It's a lot harder for you probably than it is for me. But like, don't forget. Don't forget what could be. Don't forget why you're doing this. And don't forget that you're good at it. Like keep going. And I am so grateful that she did. So that's my pizza box moment. I share it sometimes with people. So now I'm sharing it with our listener verse. But that was one of the unpolished real moment versions where I was like, this is ridiculous. And is it really worth it? And it turns out, 20 plus years later, I can say it really, really is really worth it. How about you?
I think it's funny. I actually predicted you were going to share that story.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is a good sign because I think every leader has times like this. And if you don't talk about it, it just makes it all the more isolating when the next person goes through it. And it's like, what have we gone through that for? How have we found that if we haven't learned from it and been able to help other people with that? So I appreciate, it's kind of fun that I was able to guess that was your story because, you have shared it with so many people. You may have heard it before. And when we talk to people, I've heard it one or two times.
A couple times.
But when I meet with people, maybe like after they've heard you tell that story, that always comes up. They say like, wow, that really meant a lot to me to hear, because when you see someone that's made it, they're in the position that maybe you want to be in the future. It's easy to be like, oh, yeah, sure, they went through these moments, but hearing it in actuality just makes it connect so much more. I think my story is a little bit different because it wasn't the times that I was working the most that I felt that sense of doubt. I had, of course, those same periods where it's like I was coming in, working, open to close, open the next day, like whatever, like putting in the hours. So many people...
We call that a clopen.
A clopen.
Right.
Double clopen, whatever. I lived there, basically. And
just to be clear, she didn't live there. There was no tent involved,
course,
not legally change her address or anything like that.
I did have a residence at the time. But it felt like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't those moments that I really had that sense of doubt. It was actually a bit of time later, and it was just a time of a lot of leadership changes and transition, and it just felt like everything I had been working towards had stalled and stepped back. That sense of one step forward, 3 steps back. Like I just felt like, what is even the future? What can be my future? Is this something sustainable that I can do? And I was running one of our restaurants at that time, and it was like super late before we closed one evening, and I was just driving around town, and I went and parked and just watched the restaurant from the outside for a while, which I've never done before that.
That's not something I ever do, but yeah.
No, never. That's
never.
Just a little joke for everybody that works at Chick-fil-A there.
Yeah.
But I went and just sat there and just thought about where I had been 2 years before that. And it just felt like such a pivotal moment for me. This was truly my make or break of I don't know if I can continue on because of just all the things that had happened in my personal life, in work, in everything. I just don't know. And it took a little bit similar to you, but I actually reached out to a therapist for a little bit and was like, I just need somebody totally impartial to talk to. I need someone, because I also existed in a bubble that all my people that I trusted and had great relationships with worked at my job. And it was just so hard to see and so there's that level of investment too. I was so invested in what I did. I overall, like you said, had that overall mission that I worked to. I loved, capital L, the people that I worked with. Would do anything for them. But it just felt like, what do I have left to give? I'm doubting if I'm even the right person for this job. Am I letting down people every day? It's just there's so many emotions that go into it, right? And so reaching out to someone really helped me. And I just remember sitting in that parking lot and signing up for an appointment and making the decision that something needs to change, but I need to make sure that it's not me before I change my scenario and my situation. And something else I want to highlight too, when I was reading this letter, Maggie Rogers gave a graduation speech. She's a singer-songwriter, gave a graduation speech, and she said, so much in your journey of leadership and entrepreneurship, there's going to be exit signs that you pass by in your journey. That's not just one road that you're on. There's interstate exits. There's things that come up, and those are all decision points. And every single person that is where they are today had to bypass those exit signs. There's not a way to take the journey without those really hard moments and tempting things. And of course, she phrased it a lot better because she's a very talented songwriter.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's to a tune. I will not be singing it today, but
next time.
I would encourage people to listen to that as well, because I think that's also a great perspective on this idea of doubt and challenges that come up. But I really want to hear your last story as well.
Really? Because I was going to say, I think so. The biggest thing I want to get across to anybody is like, yeah, we're sharing stories of war stories, right? Our career stories. But at the end of the day, I think what you said there that the songwriter had said is so important, because we all get to these points, and when we get there, it doesn't mean that what we're doing is wrong. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that we should exit and do something else. Sometimes it does. I think like those occasions come up, but I have found that so often these like pizza box, sit in the car moments, they're the defining moments where if you don't exit then, they really propel you to next. They propel you to that next that you're looking for, and it's not instant. So I just want our listeners to know that like I do feel like we're in a culture today where when something gets really hard, we associate hard with bad.
Yeah. And
when we don't have a really clear next step, we associate that with, well, clearly my next step should be out of what I'm currently doing. And you can do this. I mean, this is with work. This is with relationships. This is, you name it. So I think regardless of what our stories are, I want everybody to understand that like, I don't think anybody that's done anything worthwhile that we all look up to has taken those exit ramps at an early state in their career journey. Like you have to grind. You have to go get it. The price has to be paid. And the question is are you going to pay it today? Or are you going to pay it tomorrow? You can try to, delay it sometime in the future. So, do I have time for my second story, or we want to? I think
no, go for it. No, we're fine.
I mean, my second story was this. I had achieved what I thought I wanted to achieve. I'd become a franchisee, right? Like I'd gotten there. I was doing it. I was a year in. Like great success. One of the highest honors in the company. Like was just on the outside killing it. But we had spent Thanksgiving by ourselves the previous year in a state where we knew no one. We had no family, no friends, no nothing, and our family wasn't coming up that year, so we wanted to go home. And our financial situation, because of taking over an existing location and just trying to fix everything, like we weren't making a lot of money. I took a pretty gigantic pay cut to go be the owner of a location instead of being like a general manager. And so, but I was determined. I'm like, I'll do whatever it takes. Like we're gonna go home for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. And so as for Christmas. And so November, I mean, I worked every single day. I took positions. I did stuff to save on labor. I mean, I was just getting after it. And I'll never forget, it was about 7:00 one night. I'm in the office at the restaurant. The P&L comes back and I click it. And I remember looking at the screen and I scrolled down to the profit line, and it was not what I needed. Mm-hmm. It was not what we needed to go home, to pay for the travel, and to pay for people to work in our place while we were gone. And I just remember seeing that number, and I remember my eyes getting very blurry, and my face getting very hot. And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm about to lose it!" Like, because it was so important to me. I worked so hard, and I remember I walked out of the office. I ran out. I ran out of the back of the restaurant, hit the back door, ran outside, and there was a fellow franchisee that happened to be at my back door. You want to talk about like God moments, like not just happenstance. Fellow franchisee happened to be at my back door coming to borrow a product. And I walked out and I literally ran into him straight into him. He's still a franchisee to this day and a dear friend. And I mean, by that time, tears are streaming down my face because I'm like, I feel like I've disappointed my wife, my family. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Like, if I've worked this hard and I can't get the result, what the heck am I doing? So you talk about rock bottom. And he just looked at me and he was like, buddy, I don't know what's going on. But he hugged me and I just handed him my keys. And I said, get whatever you need. Just leave the keys, like under the flower pot or whatever the next day. And he grabbed me by the shoulders. He was like, whatever it is, you got it, man. Like, you can do this. And, I left. And here we are, almost 20 years later. But like, that was a rock bottom moment for me. But what I realized in that time, again, not everything that's hard is bad. What I realized in that time was I worked really hard. I just worked really hard on the wrong stuff. And I didn't quite have the insight yet to realize that I was working really hard on the wrong stuff. And if I would just work a little less hard on the right stuff, all that other things, the results would come. And so, over the next couple of months, I had some hard conversations with people that had more wisdom than I had. I invited people to come in to see what I was doing and give their insights. And it hurt, and it made me mad. And then I started doing some of the suggestions that they offered and listening to some of their insights. And I got from a place of desperation to a place of pretty wild success that next year, achieving some pretty major goals. And I think the cool thing is that whether it's sitting in the parking lot going, can I still do this? If it's sliding down the wall of the pizza box going, I can't do this, or if it's walking out the back door crying as the boss going, what am I doing with my life? Those moments are so critical for your learning and your launching to what's next. And so wherever this reader or this writer is, I actually think it's such a position of you better get ready because you can get through it. You can learn from it. And if you go into it with an open mind, get ready because what's next is going to be beyond your wildest dreams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I'm really glad you shared that second story, actually. I think it was well worth the time and very beneficial. And it's so interesting because as we share these today, I just want to emphasize to Doubting and Desperate, I don't tell that story out of a sense of pain and regret and remorse. I tell that story almost in it's a pivotal moment for me. It's
power, man.
Yeah,
yes.
Power, I think, is a great. And so you are at this moment, you are at this point. It is going to be a pivot of some point, whether it's personal, emotional, whether it's a new action you take, something's going to happen. And now, is that going to help me the next time I face one of these moments? No, in the moment, it's okay to feel down and defeated.
Yeah.
But you can't stay there in that. It's knowing that everyone has those situations and how you rise and come through that. Because one day it will be just a really great part of your story that you get to share and tell with others.
And if you need us to be your cheerleader or your pick-me-up, give us a call.
That's right. LaunchPointLeader.com. We would love to work with you guys, just be there for you in those situations because we talk about it all the time. Leadership can be lonely and it doesn't have to be. Yeah. There are resources, there are things available, there are things that we can help you with. Absolutely. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate Doubting and Desperate, you just being vulnerable and asking for this because sometimes, you don't need a long actionable list of things to do. You just need to hear that someone else has lived through it and survived and become better because of it. So I appreciate that.
Not survived. Thrived. Boom. There it is.
Boom. Thank you so much for writing in. You can always visit launchpointleader.com and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.